Embezzlers and terrorists hiding among the corporations who come to Delaware because of the taxes and the anonymity. One legislator wants to deal with that problem and trying to get startup tech companies to come to Delaware. It's a new state initiative. They're the topics we're talking about today, and this is the Delaware Way. Welcome to the Delaware Way. I'm Larry Menti. As you have probably heard, Delaware is known as the incorporation capital of the United States, maybe of the world. It's also known as the shell corporation capital of the United States, maybe of the world. And those who choose to incorporate here or open a shell company here can do so under anonymity. And our first guest has a problem with that. His name is John Kowalko. He's a state representative from the southern Newark area in Delaware. Sir, what's the problem you see with the shell corporations and anonymity?
Well, the problem with anonymity in the American culture of incorporating business is that there's no identifying factor on the legitimacy of that corporation and its intentions. Most corporations, the majority, a plurality of corporations certainly have ambitions to move forward in the corporate world for the benefit of a business or a corporation that's going to benefit their bottom line. But there are opportunities that are given by maintaining this anonymity in the corporate world for establishment of shell companies.
But other people have abused that anonymity.
Yes, they have. And in Delaware specifically, there has been an abuse of anonymity. And I don't reflect poorly on the fact that Delaware is known as the Cayman Islands of the United States. That's an encouragement. But it's not limited to that. I would say that the derogatory tone of it being the Cayman Islands because maybe it's a haven for tax write-offs and all that. Delaware is the incorporation capital of the United States for very significant reasons. Those are access to a wonderful court system, transfer court system, the ability to incorporate in an atmosphere where you're going to get a fair accounting of incorporations. All of these things are what are taken advantage of by corporations and legitimately. But that leaves also the door of opportunity if you don't have to disclose a beneficial ownership. You then can come in, incorporate in Delaware, and as I said in a debate we had, with less obstruction than it requires to get a driver's license or a library card.
Now you had this debate on the in committee or on the floor?
No, we had this debate. Actually, it was hosted at the library, and Assistant Secretary of State Rick Geisenberger.
Now, are you going to introduce legislation?
We have sent the letter. 31 of us state legislators signed on to a letter urging our federal delegation to support the existing, there's a House resolution and there's a Senate bill proposed. It's under the title of ITLEAA. It's a transparency bill which allows law enforcement, which will provide access for law enforcement to identify beneficial ownership if there is any suspicions of either money laundering or illegal drug.
You had an arms dealer that was here for a while that had incorporated under anonymity. So I can see there's a problem. But for a politician, these are dangerous waters, are they not? Because there's so much money coming to the state because of the incorporations.
Exactly, and that's why the idea of having this done at the federal level would solve the consternation or concerns of our local government that we would lose any market share.
Delaware is having a problem, as many states are, of corporations moving out, and you don't want to lose that tax base. Would you, if you were to do this on a state level, get any support to do it on a state level?
It was sort of left out there, trying to do it at a state level, and I actually agreed with the criticism of that it would put the state of Delaware at a disadvantage. It would not only be not as efficient as having it done at a federal level, where you'd have every corporation in the United States mandating identification. If you did that alone, the market share that we may be losing now to competitive states as far as the incorporation, we enjoy that because of the benefits that we provide, not because of the loopholes we allow, but the benefits we provide. That market share could be seriously threatened. Because it would say, well, I don't want to go to Delaware. I'll go to New York. I'll go to North Dakota. And
let me try to play this out. I mean, the legitimate reasons for anonymity. Mm-hmm. Aren't the legitimate reasons, much of that, just a public relations thing? If you have a company, let's say in Pennsylvania, that as the gubernatorial candidate has been accused of having, Mr. Wolf, and you want to open up a corporation here, aren't you avoiding Pennsylvania taxes?
Well, if you are, then
that's why you want anonymity.
I would say ethically that should be divulged, but that's not what these bills that are before Congress now for the last 7 years are intended to do. They are to provide an identity for the beneficial owner, so that if there are any criminally intended circumstances, it's really limited.
So you want to still give them
to
their
law enforcement abilities.
You still want to give the legitimate companies their anonymity.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
You don't want them to leave Delaware.
I don't want to expose someone for either a privacy issue or compromise their privacy or their rights to a competitive advantage within their business culture. This is purely and simply to enhance law enforcement's abilities to look into these things. So it's not, right now, law enforcement can subpoena certain things, but if the records don't exist, it's subpoenaing nothing. It's subpoenaing a vapor.
So how has this been accepted at the federal level?
At the federal level, it's been languishing for 7 years, but I think that you have a corporate culture at the federal level which is more entrenched against a transparency than even the favorability of the Delaware corporate structure is. I think that there's almost a mean-spiritedness to somehow putting corporations at a disadvantage, and I don't think that's true. It's manifested in the Supreme Court decision, I think, identifying corporations as people. When we start looking at this in the context, in a holistic context of corporations and individuals and benefits to society and benefits to just the corporate, we can weigh too far heavily into one area, and I think that's what we do at the federal level. So I think there's been a difficult path to make this happen at the federal level, and I just think that I'm not in favor of what this administration, the Obama administration, has presented as an alternative, because it has a lot of failings in it. I find it's almost a no-brainer that we shouldn't.
No, it does seem like, believe me, it does seem like a no-brainer, especially when you limit it just to criminal activity. I mean, who wouldn't be for that? But it does seem like a skeptic would say that it does seem like anything that could even be perceived as unfavorable to a corporation isn't even going to get up for a vote, because the money, especially for federal politicians, come from the corporations.
Yes, and to be honest about it, and to be frank about it, when you look at it, you look at our federal delegation, I mean, they have an obligation, but I don't say it's a mandate to favor the corporate structures, to not put it at risk. I'm not asking to put it at risk. I'm asking to look at this in a holistic thing. And you know, there's a lot of influence that goes on, especially at the federal level, where you try to maintain the priority of your own state's advantages, maybe to a fault sometimes. And that's why we wrote the letter urging the federal delegation to consider that we join them, we would encourage them to join this movement. I think if you put 50 states in a bucket and you said pick out the one that probably has the most obligation to corporations, but also is most influenced by corporations, that's the same bucket. You're going to find Delaware comes out of that bucket on top.
We'll be back to talk more with the state representative about some other things, including the casinos, when the Delaware Way continues.